To the details now, some educationists and think tanks working in the education sector have called for wide-reaching reforms to be made at the West African Examinations Council in the wake of leakage of papers and examiners lists for the ongoing West Africa Senior School Certificate examinations. The Ghana National Association of Teachers, represented by President Philippa Larson, says the current crisis will affect the international credibility of certificates from Ghana.
Roland is so worrying, and if we are not careful, this issue is going to become an annual ritual. Over the years, we have had issues where examination papers have leaked, and all we have done is just to cancel the examination papers. Now, there are certain things that we have to look at. Once we do, or once we cancel examination papers, we should know that all these things go with cost, the financial implications, the time, labor, and all that. And so it's just not enough to say that you are canceling the examination papers. There should be a thorough investigation into all that and get to the root cause of the issue. It is something that we have to kill. It's not just a matter of canceling the papers. And people will have to be brought to book. People who are found culpable will have to be punished. Over the years, we have not had any information about people who, from wherever, who have had hand in it and have been punished. And I think this is the time we all have to look at it and do the right thing, get to the root cause of it and punish people so that we kill this thing once and for all.
Of Public Relations at WAEC, Agnes Tekujo, says investigations are underway.
Our subject officers have compiled the paper. It's taken to the all under security. I will not be able to tell you the kind of security, but then all under strict security. We do typesetting, we do proofreading. Then papers are printed, so under very, very tight security to have Ghana there at the press. You know, we have our cameras. People are not even allowed to take in their, wristwatches, anything. You know, very tight security. You are searched before you enter. You don't take mobile, you don't take anything. And those who enter the printing room, when you enter, you don't come out till you have finished for the day. You know, everything is done at the very first day. So from there, it's going to post, so it's printed, it's parceled, it's packed. And then we go to where we call packing, where it's packed according. But it is not our inability to adopt tighter encrypted technology. That is not.
But we have a
now,
but we have
something. If I hand over something to you, and after I've handed over something to you, what do you call it? Snapshots are taken. I don't think it is tighter encrypted security.
But Executive Director of Education Watch Africa, Kofi Asare, says investigations by the Cybercrime Unit of the Ghana Police CID is not enough.
Well, if you read WAEC's own reports of last year, and one of the news reports that they briefed Ghanaians on the outcome of a particular case they reported to the police, they indicated that questions normally leak when they leave their strong room, and then they leak through persons taking shots of the questions and then circulating them ahead of the questions getting to their internal destination. And so, according to WAEC, within the question value chain, where the leakage occurs is normally between their strong room and then the school. And so that is what they are saying. We haven't conducted any investigation into how it leaks, and that's why we have called for the intervention of the Parliamentary Select Committee Investigation to delve much deeper into the entire value chain and help us unravel where the gaps are, and then how we can prefer institutional and policy level remedies to strengthen the institution and also our assessment sector, and uphold the integrity of our examination process. But so far as WAEC is concerned, they are interested in rather abdicating responsibility, because they are saying that the thing leaks when it leaves their jurisdiction. That's virtually what they are saying, because they are responsible for the strong room, but they say the thing leaks after it has left their strong room. So it is not, even though it is leaking, they cannot be blamed. That is their position. So the question of who to blame, perhaps, and also where to, if you blame, if you get to know where the blame is, you get to know where the gaps in the performance of one's duty is, where the gaps in where the gaps in the performance of one's duty is, for that matter, where can be strengthened. But if you don't know it, it makes it difficult for you to know remedies to fix the institutional issue.
Away from education, former Roads and Highways Minister Fuseini is accusing the NPP government of misleading the public in the figures it recently put out on road infrastructure during the Mahama administration in comparison to theirs. Vice President Dr. Bawumia, in his presentation of government projects in the last 3.5 years, revealed while the Akufo-Addo-led government was constructing 4 major interchanges in Tema, Pokwase, Tamale, and Obechibi-Lamte at a cost of $289 million, the Mahama administration built the Kwame Nkrumah interchange alone at a cost of $260 million. But speaking on PM Express, Mr. Fuseini said that comparison is a non-starter, explaining the projects were valued in euros, and so using current exchange rates to convert them into dollars bloats the figure.
Second phase. They are securing 98 million for the second phase.
Are you making an argument that
89 million euro for the second phase? They've converted it here. The cabinet memo actually to cabinet was in euro, not in dollars.
Okay, so they've done the conversion. I mean,
I don't know.
That's a big
saying that the cabinet memo they sent to the Flagstaff House was in euro.
Are you suggesting?
So you mean that if they got the money in euro and the dollar, the exchange rate between the dollar and the euro appreciates in favor of the euro, you will still have 100 million?
Okay, but your argument is that, so what? The second phase is bloated.
I say that if you argue on value for money, then you have to re-examine yourself. That if a government was going to construct the second phase of the Obechibi-Lamte interchange at 63 million
in 2016.
In 2016,
yes.
And that same government in 2016 found 35 million for the first phase. With 35 million you are using. That 25 million has not been affected by anything. They say that Tamale interchange is what?
35 million.
35 million is the initial EPC contract price. The revised contract price of Tamale interchange is 47,671,258.
Dated when? This is cost over what? Is it your time, or this is something that was in the parliament recently?
Oh, my brother.
So this is an
I told you, if they're shaving you, don't rub your head. So I say interchange is being implemented under the Sano Hydro deal.
So this is purely under this current government.
So 4 interchange projects costing Ghana $289 million, that's against one which cost us $260 million. But just looking at the figures, one can easily see a huge disparity. But is it that simple? Well, we've been joined by a procurement expert, Kwamna Atabedu, for some understanding on what really goes into costing a project. Tell us, thank you for joining the show, Mr. Atabedu. Tell us what exactly goes into costing a project.
Okay. Good morning to you and good morning to your viewers. Now, to tell the cost of a project, it depends on the design and then the specifications that are given to it. So to just say that one interchange is equal to 4 interchanges is a red herring. It is neither here nor there. You'd have to go into what goes into it, i.e., what materials are being used, in what proportions. You can cast concrete and make and use iron rods, but the iron rods will be of different thickness and of different properties. You can and with different kind of treatments for the iron rod. You can cast concrete with cement and water to stones or gravels mix of different proportions. And this is not rocket science. This is something that a quantity surveyor can easily cost and tell us what the difference is. So I don't see why we should be haggling over this. It is useless.
Okay, so just looking at the figures for you alone, when you had the comparison, as a procurement expert, what went through your mind? Much ado about nothing?
It's much ado about nothing. See, if you ask the quantity surveyors, they'll tell you that there's an average cost of a cubic meter of concrete. Now, if you use the two interchanges, if my mind serves me right, the circle interchange is primarily based on steel beams, and steel plates with asphalt layers on them. The Pokwasi interchange, for example, is more concrete works. So there are two different types of structures that is at play here. And it is only a quantity surveyor who can build the quantities for it. And you know, when you have a project, there's the drawings that you start with, and then there's the as-built drawing. So by the time you finish, you draw the project as has been built. That's why they call it as-built. And the as-built drawings will come with its quantities and its pricing.
Okay.
So you would always be able to tell what the final cost of the project is.
Mr. Tabedu, please hold on a while. Let me speak to a civil engineer, Abdullah Mahama, for his side of this whole conversation. Thank you for joining us. For the procurement experts, this is much ado about nothing. What do you say to this whole debate as a civil engineer?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can, sir.
Yeah, good morning to your viewers. Rightly so, what the consultant just said, the procurement expert just said, I have an issue when it comes to politicians branding figures here and there with regards to the cost of a project. Like you rightly said, it's much ado about nothing, because you would have a project which will be situated in a certain location, and there are various components of the same project that can be another location, which will vary because of the nature of the land and the physical features within the neighborhood or the areas where the structure is going to be put up. So let's circle, for instance, the extent of demolition and compensation is part of the cost build-up. If you are putting up a structure or an interchange in an area where you barely have to do any demolition of houses, that would also affect positively the cost of the project. And then the circle interchange is made of composite material. It is basically steel and some small concrete. The abutment and the piers, which are the support underneath, is a concrete. But the material on top of the abutment and piers is steel. And we all know that steel is too expensive as to compare to ordinary concrete reinforcement.
So you've told us what will make a project like the circle interchange, though it looks small and less detailed in comparison to the Pokwasi interchange, cost less. What will make a project like the one at Pokwasi? It's very elaborate. We've seen the images and we've seen the works. What will make that cost less than the circle interchange?
First and foremost, the material. At Pokwasi, we are doing about, let's say, 90% of everything there to be pure concrete. The land itself would have played a role. That's as in the topography, the type of soil being witnessed, as in doing the drilling, geotechnical investigation. When you do so mostly when you are starting a project like that, the basic thing you have to do is the geotechnical investigation. That will now determine the extent to which the foundations would have to be erected. Some of the land, when you do some geotechnical investigation at, let's say, circle, due to the nature of the soil, if it is a made-up ground or a very unsuitable material, you may have to go maybe 3 times the depth of what is happening at Pokwasi. Secondly, if you look at the circle interchange, the steel works can be used within a average years of 200. It means that when the circle concrete lifespan has come to an end, we can really uninstall the steel works, the composite material, demolish the abutment and piers, reconstruct the abutment and piers, and launch the steel again. Unlike Pokwasi, unlike Tetakwashi, Sankara, unlike the Kaswa, when that road has gotten to its full lifespan, everything has to be removed. But with a circle interchange, one material has to be reused for 200 years.
Okay.
So, like the procurement expert is saying, it's so mind-boggling when you hear figures being branded around, when cost, like you said, when you do even all the design we do, during the design, obviously there will be changes. I have not come to terms with my 15-year career in construction where a design had been done without any variation or changes.
Okay.
As and when you are doing the design, external factors necessitate some revision to be done here and there.
Okay.
So all those things would come to play at the end of the day. That's why when you are done with the work, you have to now go and do what we call an as-built drawing, and the cost consultant will now actually sit down and quantify to be able to come up with a final certificate. The final certificate of every contract shows how much money has entered into the contract, how much money has been spent at the end of the day. So that's why when you are presenting certificates for payment, we call them interim payment certificate. Interim.
All right, Mr. Abdullahi. Sorry, let me just ask you this briefly before I go to Mr. Atabedu. Looking at the interchange at Circle, could we have used concrete, for example, to lower the cost?
It depends on the consultants who are actually championing the cost. It could be done, but sometimes you're looking at a certain span, okay? Before you use concrete throughout a construction, you have to look at some of the spans that you are actually trying to achieve. Some of the spans cannot be done exactly with concrete. Maybe you are doing a span of, say, 50, 60 meters long. The concrete would be weak in some of the instances where the steel works will be more beneficial. Because maybe you are doing a span of, say, more than 30, 40, 50 meters at a time. The concrete would be too, it means that you would have to do a thicker concrete, because the longer the span, the thicker the concrete will be able to take care of all the bending movement, where it's supposed to share the hugging and sagging movement. Okay. But the steel is so strong that it can take a longer span and reduce the thickness so that your clearance, you see that when you get to the circle area, they have actually they have erected a gantry that there's no way a vehicle more than 4 meters high can go across the interchange.
Yes.
Unlike other areas where we have a 5 meter clearance. So it's a design concept that has brought about cost and the type of material to use for the circle interchange as against the other interchanges.
All right, so thank you.
My happiness is that the Pokwasi interchange, which was initially a 3-tier, had been revised to a 4-tier. In that case, you are reducing the conflict of vehicles in all the tiers to the barest minimum. Okay. If you compare that one to the Sankara interchange, if you are coming from GTB towards the police headquarters, you are under the tunnel. But when you come from the Flagstaff House towards the immigration office or to Independence, what they call the National Theatre, you would have to stall at a point to allow some of the cars to use the circle, the roundabout within it.
Exactly.
That is a conflict.
Okay.
Where you will not see that thing at the Pokwasi. So that's the beauty of the Pokwasi interchange.
Sure.
We are in for a good thing. That's all.
Thank you for your time this morning. Abdullahi Mahama is a civil engineer. Let me come to you, Mr. Atabedu. Finally, why do you think there's so much politics around the cost of projects here in Ghana?
Okay. So I think before we go to that question, I need to address some of the issues
quickly,
Mr. Mahama raised.
Yes.
First, Circle is close to the sea, and it's in an area where the water table is high because of the Odo River that runs close to it.
Okay.
So that requires you going deeper, reinforcing the soil because the concrete to be able to carry the weight. Now, using steel in a place like that, for me, is questionable because it will be subject to rust and may not last the length of time a steel plate is supposed to last because of salt and oxidation. So my question is, why would anyone design a road in that part? If anything at all, it should have been swapped the other way around, where Pokwasi is much inland and the sea breeze will not get to that point and rust it earlier. So that is the first flaw in the circle interchange. So let's come back to the question you just
the
asked.
Politics of project costs.
The politics of it. It is about the politics of infrastructure. Who has built more infrastructure than who? And if you load the project with cost, then you can say that we invested X amount in capital projects, when those X amounts were generally for probably one item. Now, the reason why I say it is a moot argument is that it is when we go into the costing of the projects and we take the unit rates of all the materials and services that were used, then we'll be able to tell whether there was value for money or not. At this point in time, we can't use our eyes to say that there's value for money here, unless we interrogate the figures. Then we'll be able to tell who has given Ghana value for money spent.
Thank you very much for your time. Kwabena Tapedu is a procurement expert, and we've been talking about the politics of project costs in regards to the Vice President's recent revelation.
Hello there, you're welcome to Business with me, Charles Aite. Now, trade expert Richard Ampabin says the absence of a common currency will not hamper trade among member countries under the Continental Free Trade Agreement. 26 out of 54 countries have so far signed on to the Trade Pact, which is expected to boost intra-African trade by $35 billion per annum. Despite this, critics say the absence of a common currency will hinder implementation, but trade expert Richard Ampabin disagrees.
The monetary framework and allow businesses to flourish. We have
this trade pact is not too distant away from WTO rules. And if you ask me, trade in the world now revolves around the dollar and the sterling and the yen and what have you. So Africa not having a common currency is not an inhibition to trade. If you care to know, EU, not all the members are on euro. About 8 of them are not on euro. But EU is running with a common market. So as for currency, yes, it will be better as we move on to get a common currency. But let me state it here.
Right.
Given the nature of our economies in Africa, again, the fragmentation of African states, it's a bit difficult to talk about a common currency now.
Now, the Second Lady Samira Bawumia has lamented what she has observed to be the inability of many Ghanaian women to access loans for their businesses, even though a 2019 IMF report indicates that women are less likely to default on loans. Most of them have issues accessing credit for their businesses. Speaking at the launch of the Young Women Entrepreneurship Initiative put together by the Ministry of Business Development, Samira Bawumia intimated that this would help women in businesses expand their businesses not just in Ghana but across the continent.
The International Monetary Fund, the IMF, indicates that 37% of women in sub-Saharan Africa have bank accounts and access to formal financial institutions and saving mechanisms. These low rates persist despite the fact that women are less likely to default on loans than men. Mr. Minister, women pay their loans, so give them more. The effect of this is the continuous low market share of women entrepreneurs. This ought to change, and I believe from today we will see that change. The narrative in this country would change, and it has to change. For entrepreneurship to thrive, there is the need to create an enabling environment which allows business to flourish. Ensuring that this becomes a reality is the collective responsibility of both government and the private sector. An environment enabling of entrepreneurship is one which works together to eliminate barriers, one which reduces the level of bureaucracy faced by entrepreneurs, and an environment that makes financial resources and knowledge accessible.
And that's it by way of business. Sports is up next. Do stay.